Yo, what's up, guys? Coming at you with some more Counter-Strike strategy today. So I've been crunching all the numbers, and I'm totally changing my strategy on DraftKings Counter-Strike based on the scoring changes. So I'm looking forward to telling you guys what I think the optimal strategy is going to be. And I have been recommending stacking, and that was because of the way the game length adjustment worked on DraftKings, so that all games were on the same scale and they multiplied by the number of unplayed rounds instead of adding a fixed bonus of zero point 0.5, which they are now. And the end result, so I have to explain first that in winning rounds in Counter Strike, teams average about 5.6 fantasy points. In losing rounds, they average about zero. Actually, this is more to simplify things. In losing rounds, I think they may actually average negative points, and in winning rounds, average more. But now in unplayed rounds, every team's going to average 2.5, and that's going to really limit some of the upside of those blowouts. And as a result, really good performers in more close fought games are going to seek their way onto the winning lineups. And also, the chance of a team really putting up an outlier score is a lot less. So my general strategy is I'm going to just take the best plays, mix them up with some contrarian ones. Pretty much my strategy for any sport that doesn't involve a lot of correlation. And I think today, uh, or tomorrow, I should say, uh, the pricing is really leading me to a few different players as kind of way too good of plays to the point where it's difficult to leave them off your roster. And that's kind of dominating the strategy over stacking. So the average points per dollar is somewhere in the eights when you have a guy that's 1.5x, several guys, in fact, that's going to really throw things off. So, what my observation is that these guys really are kind of just average players, especially these two top ones, Shoe Time and SHZ. So they have really good matchups. So in the case of IMP versus ISU, two really average or below average teams, and then Boom versus Red. These are both the South America region, so I think that on average, these couple teams aren't nearly as these four teams aren't nearly as good as the others on the slate, and that's why these guys are so low priced. So I'm gonna have trouble really fading SHZ in particular because if we look, Boom is favored by -210 to win this game, and I think that he's just way too cheap. So I'm gonna throw him in here, and then Showtime, even cheaper, and just to take a look here. So SHZ positive kill to death ratio in the last 6 months. These are all professional matches, and there is a much better player on this team, Phelps. His stats are off the charts here. I think, let's see, if we go to a larger period of time, it's a little bit more even though. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. So I think that it's pretty safe play to kind of get some of these studs in here. Showtime. If we look at the last 6 months, this 0.7 kills, that's above average. 0.67 deaths, about average. All five guys on this team aren't particularly great, but because of the matchup, they're just gonna have a little bit more success than versus an average team. All right, so I got these two guys in here, and this is just gonna bump up my projection so much that I can go with whoever I want. Zaiwu, a little bit of a tough matchup, but probably one of the best players for fantasy in the game. Uh, All right, so we got Evil Geniuses and Cloud9 are two of the biggest favorites, as well as Astralis. So pretty much mix and match any of these guys. I think there is a slight value in stacking, but I'm not really going to go out of my way to do it. So in this case, Cloud9, I have two players that kind of fit my build here. And then the highest projected for under 7K, or not 8K, Ethan. Maybe I'll go to Flusha. I think he'll be a little bit more contrarian just because a little bit more of a pay up option. But also like Lato. Lato is someone that, if you've been playing these slates, he has really kind of performed poorly as a chalk in the last slate. So hopefully people look at this 27 points per game and fade him. So this would be kind of my example build here. And just for the sake of trying to figure this stuff out, I'm going to go to Fantasy Cruncher and see how much these two value plays influence my overall projection, which is kind of the metric I like to decide if someone's fadeable. All right. So not seeing them. I'm for some reason this isn't sort of quite right. But okay, so Showtime. I'm going to just eliminate these guys and then crunch the optimal. 422. Much more balanced build. And then if I throw them back in here, 431. I guess they're definitely fadeable in this case. So I was exaggerating a little bit, but BNTT, another player that is going to be kind of a staple. So you do have some options for how you're going to build this, but if let me just put on a tiny bit of randomness. Actually, no, I'll run in a crunch without any randomness, and I'll see kind of what the exposures look like. So basically, there are about 25 players that are like cracking optimal lineups out of let's see how many, 80 players. So that shows like how chalky this slate is, that if you just go optimal, you're gonna only end up using about 40% of the player pool. All right, so I think it's probably a good idea to kind of acclimate people to the game, having a little bit soft salary cap here. So hopefully that works. As I mentioned, I like Lato as kind of a bounce back play. And if we go over to the ownership projections here, he actually do project him for decent ownership. Let's see if I sort by projection. Maybe this will help me figure out who to captain. So BNTET, a little bit less captain ownership. So I think that these guys all have like pretty good upside as captain. Although, of course, Zaiwu is a pretty good fantasy player. So let me throw in BNTT as my captain. And I feel like this is going to give me pretty much whoever I want. Maybe in this lineup, I will go with Ethan. He's in a really good matchup. And SHZ. And then if I'm going that Evil Geniuses have a good day, I definitely don't mind throwing in a stack. So let's see. Cirque, I have as one of the top players on the team. And Zaiwu fits perfectly in here. I think there is a little bit of advantage in stacking, but as I'm mentioning, I'm not going to sacrifice a lot of projection. And because Evil Geniuses is one of the highest projected teams on the slate, that accomplishes my goal here. So let me make one more lineup. Another thing I'll mention about BNTT is I have him projected to be the highest scoring player on the team by a good amount. And that kind of improves your odds that if Gen G have a good day, he's more likely to be the highest scoring player and thus the optimal captain. All right. And let me throw in SHZ as my captain and just see how that lineup kind of looks because he is so cheap. I can just kind of stack my lineup with some of the best plays. It's interesting that Phelps is so high priced on the same team. So let me take a look at this. Okay, so yeah, this is the guy that he had a really sick last 6 months. But 662 rounds. If we divide by 30, that's 20 sets. If we go to a larger sample, much more realistic. So I'm guessing they base this off of the last 3 months or 6 months kind of performance. All right, so he might be a guy I'd avoid. All right, so maybe I go with the Cloud9 stack here. Mini stack. And then if I go with Showtime, I can get whoever I want. Maybe in this lineup, it's hard to fade Zaiwu here because he is projected to be the highest scoring by a decent margin, and the standard deviation in Counter-Strike compared to projection is about 20, I think. So pretty good chance that he outscores the other guys. All right. So I hope this gives you guys some insight on how you should approach Counter-Strike. As I mentioned, I think that the new scoring focus more on getting a high projection in your lineups compared to having more correlation. I think that's going to really maximize your chances of taking down this tournament tomorrow. So good luck, everybody, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I look forward to seeing how this slate breaks out.